Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Hey, welcome to this episode of the Note Closure Show. It's a very, very special episode. And, guys, it's hard to believe we're already rolling in halfway through February. Around Valentine's Day, this comes out. And you guys know that I had such a great time at FinCon. Hard to believe that was back in October, 3 months now. But one of the big things you guys know that we've really harped on is definitely focusing on your goals. What things do you want to accomplish? What do you want to get done? And obviously, overwhelmingly, there's always a couple things besides becoming skinnier, better looking, and making more money. A big goal is also how to get rid of debt, how to pay things off, how to get out from the credit card interest rates and stuff like that, or how to make more bang with your buck to make sure that you've got more money left at the end of the month versus more month at the end of your paychecks. And we're really excited to have an amazing individual on here. She was the MC of an amazing FinCon. I've known her for a couple of years, and she give you a bit of her street cred here for you. When she graduated from college, not only did she get this pay off over $300,000 in debt, she also was able to invest into the first million and stuff like that. So if that doesn't excite you, I want you to hang around and take tips from this. You should also go out. She's also a best-selling author, Crush Your Money Goals, 25 Smart Money Habits that you need to take a look at. Phenomenal book. I've read it. Absolutely love this gal. Bernadette Joy joined us here on the Note Closure Show. Bernadette, how you doing, girl?
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel my face getting hot from you saying that, where it's just like I've watched you for a long time and admired the things that you've been doing since I've started going to FinCon like years ago now. And you've always been so kind and generous to share your platform. So I just feel very grateful today. So thank you.
No problem. I know we talked after FinCon last year, and you were all excited about the book coming out, and it has just been a big success and lots of great stuff there. You've
Thank
really
you.
had an amazing kind of journey with your money story. You want to kind of go back a little bit because that's just, people hear that 300,000 paid off in just a few years and then seven figures. I always make the joke, Jesus saves, but everyone else has to invest.
Good one.
Can you kind of talk about
Yeah.
that, how you accomplished that?
Yeah. So, first generation Filipino American, eighth of my dad's nine kids, education, as you mentioned, a top priority, got to go to a good college, got 3 degrees, not just one, got 3 degrees.
Overachiever there now. Come on
Yeah.
now. What are those
And,
degrees in? What are those degrees in so folks have an idea?
um, two in business and one in psychology. So I have a master's in business, and then my father actually was cleaning out my stuff, and my father had put into the Filipino Reporter, the Filipino newspaper in New York, how I had graduated like magna cum laude, and I married my husband, and his name is AJ, and that was like like, so when I tell you, like, he cared more about my degrees than me, like, getting married, like, that was kind of the environment I grew up in. And so,
Now, AJ is a wonderful guy. Had a chance to spend some time with him while you were working your booth and stuff like that. Great guy, definitely smart guy. But that's a proud papa right there, though,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it was very much like, she's smart, right? And so that was always my identity. And then coming up in 2016, when I graduated from my MBA program, I found myself in all of this debt. And, so student loans, credit cards, like a mortgage for like a investment property that I had no business being in at the time. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel so dumb. That was such a slap in the face for someone who, my whole life I was like building this identity around that idea that I was a really smart person, and I just felt so stupid. So 2016, I did what a lot of people do, is like I Googled like how to pay off debt. And I got like the same usual suspects of like, here's how you pay off debt. And I started following some of those different methodologies, like, the debt snowball really resonated with me, and certain things that I took with me. But there are also a lot of things that didn't resonate with me, and I had to kind of find my own path on it. So fast forward to 2019, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it. My husband and I paid off all $300,000 of debt. I'm like 34 years old, and we had decided to take a lot of this money, rearrange it, and pay off our primary residence. So I was debt free, including my house at 34. And I was like, wait, I thought I was going to spend another 20 years like paying off my mortgage and like trying to like do all this stuff. So what do I do now? And that's when I started getting into the financial independence kind of category of things. And again, some things I really thought were great, some things that I was just like, oh, not for me, and trying to figure out my own path. And so 2020 launched what is now Crush Your Money Goals. And I love that you mentioned our connection at FinCon because 2019, after I paid off all of that debt, I realized I'm like, I don't really like my life that much. I think I need to do something different. And so I had closed down my business at the time. I was sitting, I remember this specifically. I was sitting on my couch wearing this like really ugly pink snuggie. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so lost. I don't know what I'm going to do. And FinCon, like I got an ad for FinCon. And so I was like, okay, well, I had started this little podcast. It was only 10 episodes. It was meant to really just get people to stop asking me to pick my brain. And I went and I was so blown away by everyone that I met. Everyone was so kind, so generous, and also just like really smart. Tanya Hester was one of the speakers, and Ramit was the keynote. Ramit Sethi was the keynote that day. And I looked at Ramit and I looked at Tanya. I'm like, I think I want to do something like that. I never read any of their material or anything like that, but I like the way that they talk to people and they talk like humans to folks. And so what was really serendipitous is like 2022, and I think when you and I maybe started crossing paths too, was I was the keynote speaker in 2022. And so many people were like, wow, 3 years ago, like I was just the girl with the backpack and I was just like trying to take notes and like just trying to figure out what to do. And so I say that all in that there was a lot of change in the last 10 years, but a lot of it was due to this personal finance community and opening up their arms to me.
Amen to that. There's never been a warmer community I found in the
Mhm.
personal finance space, and I often find, especially a lot of financial advisors, because I come from that actually, a previous mortgage banker, previous financial advisor, and a lot of that is the talk on investing. It's not about paying down the debt, and a lot of financial advisors I see and experts, they talk over people. They don't talk in just layman's terms to help people understand it. I remember sitting as a banker, and one of the financial advisors comes and talk to my client, who's just a blue-blooded American. She runs a convenience store. She's got some money left to her from an insurance policy, and this guy starts talking about PE and expense ratios. And I just wanted to slap him. I'm like, get the hell out of here. All right, let's break it down simple for you. You know, what were some of those lessons? You talk about some lessons that really resonated with you and others that, it's not your cup of tea. You want to share maybe some of those things that you liked and things that you disliked that didn't hit your fancy?
Yeah, so like I said, some things that resonate, like the debt snowball really resonated with me because I'm a psychology major. And so like the idea of having these small wins and like building up over time was really great for me versus like the math of like the avalanche where you're paying the highest interest first. Because truthfully, if I had done that, I probably would have given up a lot quicker back then. So that was really resonant with me. But something that actually came up recently, um, was so I was invited to like a Dave Ramsey event and back in before FinCon, actually, this year's FinCon. And it was for like people in the personal finance space to like, learn from each other and, do all these things. And I'm like not really in the Dave Ramsey camp. And I thought to myself, I was like, well, it would be really great for me though to go and see what conversations are being had. And I can always learn from anybody, right? And so um, we we were each tasked to come up with like a 3-minute talk. And I, at the time, was planning to do a talk that I had done a million times over. And 30 minutes before I was supposed to go up, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to change this completely. And I'm going to try something completely different that I haven't rehearsed or anything like that and just like see where it lands. And so the talk that I had, and I titled it like Why Dave Ramsey Pissed Me Off, was I just talked about my own personal experience of having paid down so much debt, so much so that I had no more credit score. And it wasn't that I had a bad credit score, it was literally I had no credit score, right? Because I paid off 3 mortgages. And or at the time I paid 2 mortgages at the time. And so I was explaining that, like the intention behind that messaging is like, yeah, you don't owe people money and all this stuff, but practically speaking in this world, like having a credit score, especially for me as like as a woman of color and like all of that stuff, like it's just easier.
Yep.
And so I talked about that and I shared that experience of just like that I got turned down mortgage after mortgage after mortgage, even though I said to them, like, just look on page two. And I know this sounds like so full of myself, but at one point I was saying, can you just Google me? And I promise you'll find a bunch of articles that say that I am capable of paying down debt. And no one would give me a mortgage at that time. So that's one of those things where I think there is a lot of like good intention, personal finance stuff out there, but I don't know that people are as clear about what the consequences are of some of these different methodologies or certain pieces of advice that they're giving. And so that's what I'm really like excited for about these types of conversations, that we can be very honest about like what has resonated with us. And I love that you asked like what didn't resonate with me, and that we can have a um very respectful conversation. That was the feedback I got at that conference. They were like, "Oh, you said something that we didn't agree with, but like it was respectful, and we were able to have a dialogue about it."
Mhm. Dave Ramsey is great, and what he teaches works well for a lot of folks that are starting off.
Mm-hmm.
But as you and I both know, our financial journey changes over time as we acquire assets and things have different impact. And then being a mortgage guy, ex-mortgage guy, I'm like, having a house paid off makes me kind of cringe a little bit because I think as an investor, all that equity tied up, you can get a low interest rate, use that money instead of paying it off to invest with. That's just my investment side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't realize that paying off your car loan, well, it is great and it has been, it's just that, or even your mortgage, can knock your credit score down quite a bit when you try to go get another one,
Mm-hmm.
because credit these days is based about having credit, and banks like to give you credit when you have credit, but not necessarily when you have no credit.
Mm-hmm.
And right, you've done the responsible things, paid it off, but banks work in a little bit different way, and that he doesn't really go into that. It's all debt is bad, and
That's right.
that's not always the case of the matter of what goes on and where you're at financially now. Yes, maybe 6 years ago you need to pay off that 28% credit card, but you need to keep some things flowing around so that you've got access to credit to take advantage of opportunities to help you invest and make more on your retirement goals.
Right. And I love having conversations with thought leaders like you who are willing to kind of open up this dialogue. Where what was interesting to me, so I raised this, is that I posted a clip of this on my Instagram, and it's by far gotten like the most engagement of all of my Instagram posts recently, because everyone assumed that I was like trying to pick a fight. And and it was so funny because there's all these comments being like, "You're stupid and you don't know whatever." And I'm just, and one of them, that's one of my replies back, has gotten more feedback from people where it's just like, did you not research me before you left this really nasty comment here? And so I think that there is so much room in the personal finance community where we can have diverging opinions and actually get in a room or get in a Zoom room and have a conversation about why we believe certain things. And it doesn't mean that we're saying like, oh, what you're doing is wrong or what I'm doing is wrong. Just saying this is what worked for me. And so what I share in my book, for example, are things that work for me and for the people that I've coached. But just because you follow another methodology, I'm not trying to say that you're wrong or that mine is better. And I think there is a lot of more work to do. Now that's why I'm so grateful for you like doing this for as long as you have, right? That I talked to a lot of creators at FinCon who are like, "Oh, I've done like 10 episodes and I'm burned out." I'm like, "Have you not met Scott?" Like, like uh, you know.
But the market, and this thing is, a lot of people look for quick hits. We all want quick hits. We're all want instant gratification, things getting done. And I like the fact, like you said about, well, I wanted to pay off that credit card first, so I got a win. Little wins, whether you're paying off debt or investing, build a lot of momentum going forward for things. It's hard to try to. I always joke that if you're trying to eat an elephant, you want to do it one bite at a time and not ass in first in a lot of cases. And for a lot of folks out there, their mortgage, their car payments these days, the average American has about was it about $12,000 on a car loan. And look at some of these rates and stuff like that. There's a huge deficit when it comes to financial literacy out there. We're not taught stuff in high schools, barely taught in college, unless you're featuring that in a lot of cases. And that's the great thing about FinCons. You got a lot of people coming from different places, different experience, and you have to find what fits you or what matches up with your goals and your background or your values in a lot of cases too, of what you want to do and pay things for. I mean, and that's the great thing. A lot of us have different opinions, but that we can get together and agree to be very cordial. Okay, I understand where you're coming from. This is my experience. Oh, does it mean it's right or wrong? Doesn't matter. It depends on what you're looking for. That's what's great about FinCon. But that's also one of the great things that I love about it. You're going through different things and sharing different hacks, I like to call them,
Yeah.
to help make people things. And there's a variety of things. You're not going to fit with all 25 of them in there, but you're going to fit with a bunch of them to help you.
Yeah, and that was my goal in putting the book together. So Crush Your Money Goals was really the framework that I've been working on since 2016. And now, I've taught it to like hundreds of people. So I felt like very confident about putting it in a book because gosh, like when you put it in a book, you realize like, oh, I can't just reprint it whenever I feel like. So, but whatever's in there better be what I'm willing to stand on for the next like couple of decades. And what I think we often conflate is that, oh, I have to agree with everything that a personal finance person says for me to follow their philosophy versus like, let's have a little bit more discernment as to what I like about what they've said and what doesn't work for me. And so the way that one of the best points of feedback I've gotten from the book recently was that someone said like it is very organized, as in like there are five, five major steps, CRUSH, and there's five habits underneath it. And I say in the book, like, just try and pick one from each category. And I'm sure, like, and so if I'm big into board games, like choose your own adventure, right? Of just like, the combination of whatever five is going to be so different for every person that reads this book. But the goal is that someone will have like a plan of where they can make incremental steps going forward. And what I really am like excited for this year, talking about, paying off all this debt. A lot of people assume that because I'm debt free, that I like somehow have some moral judgment against other people who 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 have debt or who tout certain like philosophies around using like low interest debt or whatever. And I'm just like, no, like I have a credit card. Like we're, if I had to take out a debt, like now I'm an investor, right? Like I look at, the, debt to equity ratios of like a lot of the investments that I'm looking at, right? So I have to still have a good understanding of it. Just because I didn't choose that for my personal finances doesn't mean that I saying like what you're doing is wrong. But what I think is really exciting for me this year is having more of these conversations with people who might be teaching something different from me and sharing those different experiences and saying, okay, great. Like now our audiences have multiple points of view where I think in personal finance we have gotten siloed sometimes saying like, oh, if you're in the debt-free community, then you can't talk to these people. Or if you're in the fire community, then you can't talk to these people. And so I'm really excited that this year, because of the book, it's given me the opportunity to talk to a lot of different people. I had 50 interviews coming out of FinCon, just from FinCon. And so the breadth of who I got to talk to is really exciting. But because I'm in this position now that I am financially independent, that I don't feel like burdened with having to like stick to a different like for example, like I don't have any sponsors. Like my business is run entirely like kind of through clients and stuff. So this year I'm like, I am willing to go to certain camps and be like, hey, I'm the one who thinks differently from you guys and let me like explain why, but I'm not here to pick a fight.
Right. Well, that's the great thing. I mean, I have an alternative point of view based on my experience, and I offer it a strategy because we all know there's no black and white, one path, one size fit all financial strategy out there for everybody out there. It all depends on where you're at, what's going on, what you're making, and what you've got to at your resources to make things happen. We all know that most Americans are struggling right now to keep up with things. I see it all the time. We're seeing, mortgage delinquencies where people are behind on their mortgage and default is low, but there's still about one out of every nine homeowners is at least 30 days behind their mortgage. That's not to add in what they're behind on their credit cards, the student loan debt, or their auto payments, and those are all at record highs of default. So you've got to figure a plan out how to adjust things. What's was that besides that's the your debt stacking or your snowball aspect of things? What's
Mhm.
another one that helped you get to where you're at on that maybe people don't think about?
So, I have my own version of it in the book. It's called the $1 rule, which is basically like a twist on the, cost per use. It's just a more specific version of the cost per use where, in cost per use, people say like, well, divide the cost of it by how many times you're going to use it and then figure out if that's going to work for you. I said like, if something's going to cost me $1 per use, then just buy it, which is like the opposite of what a lot of people expect from a financial coach, which is to say, again, what didn't resonate with me in the past was just like, you need to cut out everything. Like, you can't enjoy life. Like, you just got to pay off your debt until it's done. And I did try that for the first couple of months of my debt-free journey. And like, I was so miserable. Like, I just
Yeah.
couldn't keep doing it. And so I've combined the dollar rule, which is basically to say anything that's more of like a discretionary purchase, like clothes or like trinkets, or my husband loves like electronics, like those kind of things. if it's a dollar, if it comes out to a dollar per use, then like let's not use our brain power for this and just buy it and move on to like bigger investments. Like let's use that brain energy for stuff that actually requires like some analytical thinking. Where I see a lot of folks who are spending so much time, oh, should I buy this couch or not? Like I have a best friend, I love him to death, but he like has showed me like 5 different couches like over the last couple of months. I'm like, bro, just buy like just pick one and buy it. And he's like, oh, but this one's so expensive. I'm like, but you're going to use it. I was like, the dollar rule actually works out on this one. So is it going to be worth it for you to spend a dollar per day to have like the perfect couch that you want? And when I said that to him, he's like, oh, that makes so much more sense. So I really love that rule because it takes a lot of the over analysis on really, in the grand scheme of things, purchases that aren't a big deal.
So true. And I was going to ask you that with your journey, did AJ and you have any financial or strife or conflict, or were you basically rowing in the same direction or have some different ideas on what needs to get paid down first?
Well, since you met AJ, you could probably tell he's not a very like fighty type of person. He's like super chill. So
He's supportive. I
yeah,
say supportive. He's a
yeah,
very supportive guy,
he is
very
very
chill.
supportive. But our first fight was from the beginning where when I figured out I had $72,000 of student loans, and at the time I was making like 30K a year, and I was just thinking like I have no idea how I'm going to pay off all these loans, and I already knew people in our families or friends who have been paying off for loans for like decades. And his initial response to me when I told him that I have all this student loan debt from this program that I just did, he was just like, it's not a big deal. Like all of our friends have student loans. So like, I mean, everyone's fine. They're figuring it out. And I was like, stop being so chill about this. This is not a chill situation. And I realized, right, that you know, he he is very good at, not making a big deal out of things. And I'm probably the opposite. I make a big deal like out of everything. And so we balance ourselves in that regard. But where we did have a lot of fights, straight up fights in the beginning, was when we started really doing our budgeting together. And it just came up a lot where like we just didn't agree on like what things had more value than others. So, for example, like, whether or not we were going to go on this vacation or whether or not we were going to one of the big conversations was we went down from 2 cars to 1 car, and we live in North Carolina, which is in Charlotte, which is not a very commutable city. And we spent a lot of time fighting on who's going to have the 1 car, right? So, I would love to say when people meet us now, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are on the same page, and y'all are so cute, and you do like hip hop videos on your Instagram. It's adorable." I'm like, no, like we're just like every other normal couple where we've had our battles about it, but we have gotten a lot better about communicating where we feel that we are not in alignment and why.
That's but that's good because same. I agree the same thing. It's not always the easiest or rosy at that aspect of it. Everybody sees, oh, y'all are so perfect or everything's rock and roll. There's some drag out, wrestling with the budget and some things. We've got a thing basically if we're going to spend about $100, we always run it by that person. The other person say, is this good value or not value? Or like, are you really going to use that thing for Halloween? She's downstairs. She's like, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is you can cut back or you can put other things in if you just take a little bit of time and get past that initial endorphin. Oh, that's so cute. I gotta have it. Well, do you really have to have it? Or is it really necessary what's going on? Okay. But she keeps me in check too. Like, hey, what are you spending on a monthly basis? Are you still using it? If not, let's get rid of it. You know what I mean?
Well, we just had this conversation in the car yesterday. So we we went on a 3-day retreat, right, in the woods, and both of us had to sit in the woods by ourselves, like in different areas, and we're silent for like the whole day. And we come back, and this is one of those retreats where people are like processing a lot of feelings and stuff, and me and AJ were like, we're good, like not like we're above anyone or anything, but we've just been processing so much for the last 10 years that we're like, we have nothing left in us, like we're like in a different space in our lives. And I said to him yesterday, I said, I realized on this retreat that I really need, both of us need to stop acting as though we're still struggling. Meaning like we've hit a like, milestones in our financial journeys, but we were so used to there being so much drama about how much money to spend or how much we can afford that now we're in the space that we can afford things and we're still acting like we can't. And And at first he said to me in the car, he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm not doing that or whatever." And he said, "But you know us, we're just so Asian. Like we're so into like finding value and things. And so that's what it is." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's a form of scarcity. Oh, us always trying to find the best deal like every single time versus just being like, you know what, we don't got time for this. Like we just got to go buy." Like we used to get fights. This is where we used to get a really big fight on. We would go to the grocery store. I'm sure people can relate to this. And he would spend so much time looking for the pack of chicken wings that was the least amount of money. Like, oh, this one is 747 instead of 842. And I'm like, and I'd be standing there in the grocery store being like, bro, we need to go. Like, why are you still doing this? And hey, like 50 more cents isn't going to break us at this point in our financial journey. So I'm saying that for everyone here is that at some point, and I wish this for everyone who listens to this, at some point that you do reach financial independence, the harder thing for me to break now in habits is like all the stuff that actually some of it helped me get me here, but are not going to serve me going forward.
Yeah, you have to change your taste. You have to do things differently. Our buying habits are different now when you're more successful than when you were when you started to get rocking off. I mean, girl, you were dressed to the T with your outfits at FinCon. Your traditional Filipino outfits were amazing
Ew.
and looked great. I mean, it was awesome. It was. I'm sure those weren't the cheapest things like it would like when we had Dave. Oh, was it? It wasn't Dave Ramsey. It was Clark Howard two
Oh
years
yeah.
ago at FinCon who talked about buying his polo shirt and shorts from Sam's Club.
Mm-hmm. 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 Although I will say I am wearing Costco pants right
There
now.
you go. Yeah, yeah, nothing wrong with that. And I got some of those on right now too.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's the thing is that you stand out. You're allowed to reward yourselves for victories and getting to specific things. And I think that's one thing that I don't think it's just in the Asian community. I think it's a lot of people, especially as entrepreneurs, business owners, we don't take that time to reward ourselves or to cherish in achieving the goals. And I think so many people get so burnt out on chasing the goal, chasing the goal, chasing the goal. Well, you hit milestones along the way, or you have a good month or a good quarter, something like that. You got to take the time to, okay, it was good, then move on because you'll burn yourself out so fast.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
how was the sitting for 8 hours without talking to anybody? Was that hard? Were you like, this is kind of good, or itching
it
for
was
somebody to jump on?
It was shockingly easy for me because I've been, talking a lot recently and like do like a lot of speaking engagements and stuff. And I actually purposely signed up for this retreat so that I would not have to talk. And so what was interesting, there was a certain scenario in the retreat, which I think I share the story because I think there's a lesson here with our finances, is there is this we had to do this exercise where we had to like stare. We had a small group and we had to stare at each person like directly in the eyes for like several minutes to the point where it was like uncomfortable, And uh long story short, like later on we're like discussing that exercise and how we felt about it. And everyone in my group was saying to this one woman, like, "Oh, you have beautiful eyes and like you're great or whatever." And she's just like going through something. And I actually said, I could feel it bubbling up inside me where I was just like, I'm really hesitating to say this, but I actually felt very frustrated during this interaction because I could feel that this woman was like holding back something. Like she was trying to stop herself from crying. I was like, girl, just cry. I mean, we're literally in the middle of the woods. Like nobody cares, right? And like we just met. So, I mean, there's nothing for me to judge you upon on this time. And if you can't cry here, where else can you cry? And the facilitators joked and they were like, "So next retreat, Bernadette will be on the facilitator team because like I just like said what was on my mind." And I was like, "No, no, no. I came here to be quiet. I came here to be silent." And I say that in the sense of like I think I'm in this next chapter in my life. I'm turning 40 in 2 weeks, and I'm going to practice retirement and see what that feels like. And I realize that when people keep asking me what retirement is, that retirement for me is like protecting my peace. And and whatever does not feel peaceful, I'm just not going to do it anymore. And so that's like a long-winded way from when you asked me this question of like, how was this retreat? I was like, that was the first time in a long time that I sat silent for 8 hours and it was great.
Well, but I think you highlight something too. Everybody's going through some sort of carrying their own cross, carrying their own shame in a lot of cases. And oh, you're successful, everybody can look that facade, but underlying, like, man, I'm barely paying my bills or barely getting by, or I'm in a job I can't stand or a career I can't stand. And we hold that in and it bubbles the surface where there's tears. And I'm on the point like, listen, no shame. Everybody's going through their own journey. It's better to share that so your friends, your families, the people that you find value can help you overcome those things, because it's like 10 times worse in our head a lot of times, right, Bernadette, when it comes to, oh, I should be making enough, I should have this much saved. Well, you should have, could have. Let's figure it out, instead of just fixating on this issue. Let's open it up, let it breathe a little bit, share with some experts, and take it to the next level.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I still continue to go to FinCon year over year. And I felt very fortunate that I got to be the host of FinCon this year because I got to meet a lot more people. But it is one of those spaces where I feel like I could be honest with other fellow like personal finance like thought leaders to say, no, like this isn't feeling right for me and I don't know why. Or like, I said straight up to someone who I consider to be very successful. I was just like, I'm kind of burned out right now, like I love being here, but I know when I get home, I have this like pile of stuff to do when I get home from FinCon. And I'm like not really sure what to do about it. And so the more that I personally have been very honest with where I'm at and being very selective as to like who I share that with, who's gonna not pass judgment on it, has been so much more freeing. And that's a part of the financial journey that I have a lot of work to do on.
Well, that's it's very normal. I mean, we all have success and we want to strike while the iron is hot. And sometimes we feel guilty, like I got all these interviews, I got all this leads, I got to take advantage. Sometimes the best thing you can do after 3 or 4 days, especially living life on the road, like you and I were talking about beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
is take that time, because you're burning a candle at both ends. It's not going to last long. You will hit the wall, and it'll be worse off versus you taking time to be yourself for 8 hours, not to talk to yourself in the middle of the woods.
I was literally sitting in a pile of dead leaves, like staring at like a tree.
Hopefully that you weren't on any shrooms or ayahuasca. That's what
No,
other people are thinking about there. No, just chilling in the middle of. Was it in Charlotte, or where was the retreat at?
it was like outside north of Asheville area. Um, and something else that really struck me, which is like again why I think a lot about why I'm so grateful for this FinCon community, was the one of the facilitators had said, I might be butchering this, but he said, in order to have like really good relationships, you need to have both kindness and honesty. And he said, honesty without kindness is brutality, and kindness without honesty is manipulation.
Mhm.
And I reflected on that a lot while I was sitting there in the trees with, I wish I was on something, but I was literally just sitting there like doing nothing. And I thought about that and I realized that there has been in the last couple of years, as I've had this little bit of like a perceived trajectory from folks, that there were a lot of folks who were approaching me because they thought that they could get something from me, whether it was like an investment tip or like a PR, lead or something like that. And so what I ended up doing was like I ended up for a while, I was just like, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just gonna shut everybody out. And luckily it kind of came around the time I was writing the book where I had to like kind of hunker down anyway. But this past couple of weeks, I realized that having wealth without health or relationships is really worthless. Like it's really just a pile of money. And so that's like the journey that I'm on right now, which is like very exciting for me that I realize that for me to have healthy relationships, and this is why I love going to FinCon in person, it's yes, we can do a lot of things on Zoom, but there's nothing like looking at someone directly in the eyeballs, which now I realize I have to do a better job of after this past weekend, and saying like, hey, I want to be honest with you and I want to be kind with you at the same time. And I think there is also a lot in personal finance where we think that someone's being kind to us, but they're not being honest. Like, for example, like, I don't know, like whole life insurance or something like that, right? Where it's like, oh, someone doesn't really have your best interest at heart. Or there are people who are being, um, you know, are afraid to be honest because they're afraid that they're going to say something that you don't like. And I love you and other people in the personal finance community who are showing up regularly, being very transparent and allowing and sharing your platform with other people.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is that as you're entrepreneur and you become more successful, I always say it's like climbing a mountain. There's a lot of rare air. The more successful as you get up on your journey and sharing, there's less people up there because they're not willing to commit to that, to the work and the time that it takes. And not everybody always has your best interest in mind. A lot of them want to figure out how to knock you down or how to get something to get what you have, and a lot of it's just that hard work. And so it's good that you separate yourself. We all have to do that at some point, you know. I wanted to ask you because I know somebody's thinking about that. When you talked at the beginning about how you had that first investment property, and you're like, "There's no reason we should have had that." Talk about, was it a rental property? Was it an Airbnb? Was it a second home? What was that, and why was it such a bad thing for you, and how'd you overcome it?
Yeah, so this was like back in 20, I don't know, 12, 2013. And we had bought a townhouse like well within our means. Like I was really proud of the fact that we bought it on a 10-year mortgage and we pay and put 20% down and we base it off of how much my AJ made. So that like if one of us lost our jobs, like we would still be able to afford it. So we were very smart about that. And then I got the HGTV bug at the time. Like, I kid you not, I went on a Property Brothers cruise because I was like, oh my gosh, like I love them so much and I'm gonna pay money to like be on a cruise with them. That's like how obsessed I was. It's so embarrassing that I'm saying that now. And so we went on this Property Brothers cruise and I was like, you know what would be a great idea for us to start flipping houses, even though I have no freaking idea what we're doing. And so we ended up we went to an open house in a neighborhood we never been in before, and we offered them like 30K less than what they were selling it for, and we're like, they're never going to take this offer. And then they did, and we're like, oh, okay, so here we are. So then we had two mortgages. We decided to move into the fixer upper, and we rented out the townhouse. But then what I did not account for was that I was going to quit my job, that I was going to go back to school, get $72,000 of student loans, that my husband and I, like I was also probably like in the worst health of my life at the time. And so I like followed that like mythology back then of like, oh, you know what's going to solve all these problems? Passive income. Except that property, our first tenant was great, but our second tenant trashed the place. So like, and I remember specifically, I remember this night like very clearly where we got a call in the middle of the night at like 1 in the morning and our like tenant had locked themselves out because they went like drinking or something like all night. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I've got a midterm next week. So I'm saying all this in the sense of just like I love real estate. Real estate has been a big portion of like how I built wealth in the past, but the timing back then was not good. And it was
Yeah,
not the right choice for our lifestyle at that back then.
there's not fun living in a rehab. That chaos does not lead to anything congruent in a relationship or studying for classes or having kids. That's just, people think it works well. I've done it numerous times. Does not work well at all, you know.
Mhm.
Because you can't get stuff done as much as you'd like to, and you end up, I've got some friends been rehabbing a bathroom for over 5 years and they can't get it done.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and we, and again, I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. So like we rehab this like 1960s kitchen and like, but I remember specifically, I was like trying to listen to a class. This was before everything went online, but I was on my MBA program and they're like literally like, tearing down walls right next to me. And I was like, this was such a bad choice. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know why I did this.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the next couple years hold for? What's the next 12, 24, 60 months hold for you, Bernadette? What are you working on?
You know what? I actually feel very comfortable in saying this that actually, no, I don't. There's a little thing that's coming up in my chest right now where I'm just like, the answer is I don't really know. And I used to be the person, and I was in HR where I'd ask that question to interviewers, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I'm like, oh, this is going to be whether or not you get the job. I genuinely don't know. What I do know is that a big portion of my time will be focused on my health. I've kind of shared this on like on my social media and stuff where I'm like like I feel like I'm battling like the insurance healthcare system every day right now. Like literally I spend a lot of time just like trying to get things approved for like things that I have going on. So there's that. Nothing serious. It's just like recurring, medications and stuff that I need. Uh, I'm definitely going to spend a lot more time with retention of clients versus acquiring new clients. I kind of fell into the trap of like, oh, the way that you grow a business is keep getting more and more clients versus like, how do I just add more value to the existing clients that I have? So that's really exciting for me. And personally, I'm very excited about this is that I I feel funny saying this. Um, I don't know, like I didn't know how to swim at all, and so I've been taking swimming lessons like as an adult for the last couple of months, and then this week I'm supposed to go in the deep end for the first time in my life ever. So
Very nice.
I hope that it'll be a lot more swimming in my future, which has never been a part of my like basic life. And I'm actually realizing that I love that. And I am going to be performing my first improv show at like in April. And I want to incorporate more of improv into my everyday communication, like hosting and podcasts and stuff.
It will pay off dividends. I'm a huge comedy fan. Did some stand up years ago, but it's so helpful. And we're both friends with Joel Saul-Sehy from Stacking Benjamins. That's one of the things he said really helped him in his
Hmm.
show was the comedy side of things. Uh, Resolve. We'll keep prayers coming your way for your health. I know it's not anything life threatening or anything like that, but still good to do that. Got to take care of yourself. And you said clients. Are you working with people to help them crush their money goals? Can you talk a little about that and what you do with your
Yeah.
clients?
Yeah, so it's funny because I don't really advertise it a lot, but my day job is being a financial coach, which is where the book came from. So if you, for those of you who are listening, if you read the book, like everyone who's listed in the book as a case study is a current or past client of mine, and so I run a boot camp every year for the first 6 months of the year to walk people through the crush system, and now we actually have the book as well to walk people through. So that's exciting, but I'm also leaning into more of my accredited investor side. And so I run an accelerator program called Flow Your Worth, where I have businesses that are in infrastructure, in social justice, in wellness, and in financial services. And I'm helping them to streamline their businesses. And it's been so fun. So fun for me to do and really good humans. And it's a way for me to diversify outside of real estate and in the stock market to actually invest in real human beings who are building businesses in real time.
That's awesome. The inner coach is coming out a little bit there for you there.
Mhm.
What kind of real estate investments are you're dabbling or invested in these days?
So my as you mentioned before, we my husband and I we own three different properties. We ended up selling all of them, and then we've been looking. Been doing a lot more in REITs, but this year we're starting to try to dabble in like commercial real estate. And what's been really fun for me is like trying to build this plan farther down the road to say I had a best friend of mine in college, like her father like owned like a liquor store for like 30 years or something, but was just this really hardworking person who ended up buying each little like spot in his strip mall until he bought like the whole strip mall. And what's been kind of like brewing in my mind lately is, finding spots where we can build like kind of little cultural centers and communities. Like in Charlotte, there's not a ton of like Asian
Right.
businesses, and if they are,
Yep.
they're like very dispersed. So that's something like in my like 20-year timeline. So right now I'm just learning how to like study deals and see if I can use my pretend money to see if I'm good at it.
Well, now's the time. There's a lot of opportunity in the commercial real estate space, especially in the smaller strip mall space. There's more distressed stuff. There's some opportunities there. Very familiar with Charlotte, Concord. I spent time in Hickory, Taylorsville,
Mhm.
Asheville. I like the Tar Heel State is one of my top 5 or 10 that we invest in stuff like this. So if we see something, we'll make sure to add you to that list and shoot it out to you
Yeah,
and go
please
from
do.
there. No problem. But what is the best way for our listeners and people who watch this to connect with you? To follow up with you, Bernadette.
Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And people can find me at crushyourmoneygoals.com. It's the same as the title of the book. If you like the sound of my voice, then you might want to check out Audible. It's there as well. And then if you want to hang out on social media, I'm primarily on YouTube. We post every Monday and also on Instagram. And that's really me just like trying a bunch of random things like swimming and dancing and eating food.
I'll tell you what, do not feel bad. I didn't learn how to swim till I was an adult as well. I
Hmm.
was very scared to go the deep end, so I didn't go deep until probably 18 years ago. So I think I'm a little bit older than you, but don't let it. It's fun once you learn how to swim.
I will see after Thursday. I already told my instructor, I was like, I am terrified. I'm like, I really don't want to do it. And she was like, oh, but you're gonna. And so I'm really excited for this like next chapter where I decide I'm just gonna do all the stuff that terrifies me. And if I don't die, then great.
Your next title of your book should be "Sink or Swimming in Your Financial Journeys."
I'm literally writing that down. I will give you credit.
All you gotta do is give me credit 3 times, and then it's yours after that, Bernadette.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Well, hey, that is going to wrap it up for this episode of the Note Closure Show. Hopefully, you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did here. Once again, go out, grab your copy of Crush Your Money Goals. It's a great book. Guy or woman, you're both going to enjoy this. Listening to it, check her out. Follow her stuff on YouTube as well. We'll put links to both the book and our YouTube channel description there. But go out, take some action. Don't be afraid to claim your own journey in financial independence and learn how to get to that point where you need to get to retirement. We all know things happen to us. We all go through financial hiccups. Stop that inner shame and shed some light on it. Open it up and go take action. Reach out to people, and you'll be a lot better off. And then we look forward to seeing you at the top. Take care, everybody.